Hi, this is Justin. Thanks for joining us. We're just getting started. Okay, as I was saying, we put on these monthly tips and tricks, and you can always find all of our tips and tricks at blog.marksgroup.net, which you can reach from www.marksgroup.net. KnowledgeSync is one of the tertiary products that we took on kind of as a companion product to a lot of the CRM solutions that we provide. So I guess the first thing I want to talk about is what does KnowledgeSync do? In a nutshell, what KnowledgeSync is designed to do, in my opinion, the title KnowledgeSync can be a little misleading because it's not exactly really synchronizing any data. What KnowledgeSync is going to do for you is make sure you take care of things. It's going to send reminders to you based upon conditions. So the first thing it does is that it watches a database, and when we say database, KnowledgeSync is actually extremely flexible. It will connect to virtually any database in the world. What it wants really is an ODBC data connection, which is kind of like the industry standard. So as long as your database is running on something that's not extremely exotic, KnowledgeSync will be able to get to it. So it watches your database and looks for a condition. And when it finds a condition, it triggers an action. So these first two bullet points are kind of the whole KnowledgeSync universe. Okay, so what's a condition? Well, it's going to watch the database, and the examples we're going to give today, it's going to be watching my calendar in my Goldmine database, as a matter of fact. And when it finds overdue calendar items, when it finds this condition of overdue calendar items, it's going to trigger an action. And in our case, our examples are going to show you how to trigger an email. So what this means is that if I'm a sales rep and I have an appointment scheduled and I happen to miss it, I can get a reminder or a reminder on a phone call. Typically where you see KnowledgeSync really shine is when you need to escalate internal issues. Let's imagine that we're a manager overseeing a couple of different sales reps, and they're responsible to do appointments every week. And if a salesperson does not complete their appointment in a certain amount of time, that would then be a condition, and I can trigger an email not only to the sales rep involved, but also to management. So KnowledgeSync becomes almost an internal babysitter for your business processes. So again, it finds a condition, it triggers an action. The actions can include an email, a fax, a pager message, a couple of other different things. But to be honest with you, email is about as far as anyone takes it. The other really cool thing about KnowledgeSync is that it includes the ability to generate and attach a crystal report to an email and send it automatically. So let's think about our manager overseeing 3 sales reps. And these 3 sales reps need to make cold calls every day. And the way they know what records should be cold called is that they usually run a report, like my cold call report. With KnowledgeSync, we could actually schedule that cold call report to automatically be distributed to the reps in question without any user intervention. This is actually what I find to be one of the most exciting things about KnowledgeSync, because I've been a crystal reporter for about 15 years, and historically, whenever one of our clients wanted to automate crystal reports, by which I mean they wanted to schedule, they want the sales report to go to everybody every Friday, they want a call report generated every night. All that stuff typically is done manually. So what you end up with, and in some cases it's absolutely time consuming to the maximum to have somebody dedicated to spending 2 or 3 hours every day just generating these reports, exporting them to PDFs, and then sending them to the appropriate personnel. There are some advanced uses in KnowledgeSync which include the ability to update database rows automatically. I will briefly go over that. I just want to let you know that it can do a little more than just send an email, but it does require that you or somebody in-house has extremely experienced SQL knowledge. So let's just talk about some typical problems that KnowledgeSync can address? Well, the first big thing that I like to demonstrate is that it can help stopgap some missing customer or prospect follow-up activities. For instance, I always have a million things going on, so when I have an appointment the next day, what I typically like to see is the night before to have a triggered reminder for that appointment, so that helps me not miss anything. It can also help with a lack of communication between departments regarding internal processes. The example I like to use there is that if you have both a service department and a sales department working in the same database, and if you have a sales guy who's scheduled to make a prospect call, or maybe like a new business call the next day, and if they have an open issue with service, the KnowledgeSync can actually notify the sales guy of that, so he knows kind of what he's walking into. And of course, the manual generation and distribution of crystal reports. So what I'd like to do now is actually jump in and just kind of show you the nuts and bolts of it. KnowledgeSync runs as a system service. It runs on a server somewhere on your network, which means that it's just installed once. It runs in only one place. KnowledgeSync comes comprised of all these different little modules to help administrate it. I find that it's almost easier to kind of show you how it works and then kind of explain it. When we think about KnowledgeSync, it's looking at a database, and what I have here are all of my test databases listed, and this Goldmine Dev or development database is the one we're going to be using today. And if I look at what KnowledgeSync is doing, it's actually using these things that are called events. An event is one of those database conditions that we spoke about just a few minutes ago. So in this case, I can see that all the defined events that KnowledgeSync can look for in my Goldmine database could be things like overdue calls, overdue follow-ups, appointment reminders. It could be looking for new forecasted sales. It could be looking for no follow-up on an opportunity, so on and so forth. So each of these events represents a condition. Okay, now all of these events actually came as part of a event pack, is what they're called. The fine folks at VineyardSoft have actually put together canned event packs for all of the biggest CRM platforms out there, like Goldmine, like Microsoft CRM, so on and so forth. So I didn't have to create these from scratch, I guess is what I'm trying to get at. So I can see here that out of all my events that I have with the ability to be checked, I'm actually only checking two here, my overdue calls and my overdue follow-up. So now if I look at the inside of an event, every KnowledgeSync event comprises of pretty much the same thing. The first thing it does is it runs a query. Again, going back to that, it's going to test the database for a condition. And the way that it does that is it uses a pure SQL or SQL query. Now, do you need to know SQL to use KnowledgeSync? No, you don't, because you have those event packs that are available to you. And it actually has a pretty good SQL builder, which we will go through as well. But not to scare you, but it does run queries. On the flip side of that coin, if you do know SQL, you probably should be growing fangs at this point, because then you realize that almost everything you'd ever want to do here is possible with an SQL query. So again, my overdue calls event is running this query, and when it finds rows out of that query, when something meets that condition, in our case, it's just looking for calls with a date earlier than today on my calendar. So if the date is earlier than today, I didn't do it, so I need a reminder. And then based upon this query, it's going to trigger all of these available actions, or not. You could mix and match. So we could trigger a report to be sent, in this case not. We could trigger a file to be copied somewhere, in this case not. What we do have, however, is an email being triggered. So again, on this database condition, trigger an email. And in this case, you're able to actually specify what the message subject is. In this case, I want to make it easy for me to remember what the heck I'm looking at. So phone calls that are overdue, great. And when we look at the message body, it actually gets really cool because we can insert database fields right in the body of the email. So when I get this reminder, it's going to say, hey, you were supposed to call this company on this date and this time about that. And we could even get more fancy and get the phone number in there as well. And I'm going to show you exactly how this emails look just in a moment. But I just want to illustrate the fact that this query, if it passes muster, if it returns a row, it's going to trigger these things to happen. So an email is an email, a fax, as you can imagine, is a fax. A pager, I can't actually remember the last time I saw somebody use an actual pager, but I guess they're still out there. This webcast tab, what it actually allows you to do is save an HTML or internet web page somewhere on an internal network. I've actually seen this used a few times, but really not heavily. The Actions tab is what I had told you about, and actually we're gonna circle back around to that Actions tab. The important thing to think about now is that when that query triggers, it's going to trigger the email, and then when it does that, it's going to do that to a list of subscribers. So what we have in KnowledgeSync is a list of people that get things, that get emails, that get reports. In our case, email is pretty much it. So I can actually add any number of subscribers to this alert. So what you typically see, especially if someone's missed like a forecasted sale, you usually see the sales rep in question getting a copy of that as an alert. But then you might see also management getting that as a copy of an alert. So you can actually add subscribers by group name. You're able to create groups here. I actually only have myself in this database at this point, but I'm sure you can see here that if we had other people defined, that we'd be able to add them easily. And then for every event, every condition being queried, we have a schedule. I actually love this scheduler. I actually wish that Microsoft would use a scheduler like this because the schedule is so easy to edit. I go to allowed range. What month do I want to allow? What days do I want to allow? And then my range time. So in this case, this is the every minute, and we're doing every n minute. So we can change the frequency to whatever we'd like. So in our case, I have this for 1 minute because I like to show people how it works in real time. We don't want to have to wait every 15 or 20 minutes or however long you might have this configured for. Does KnowledgeSync have to trigger every minute? No. Typically, KnowledgeSync events trigger maybe twice a day or maybe once a day. Does it have a big impact on